Okay, thank you very much. So we'll get going here. Welcome again to our mayoral town hall. We'll be discussing a variety of issues and answering questions. So I always like to start our town halls by giving everyone a brief update on village finances. Just last month, we adopted our 2003 to 2004 fiscal year budget. And after freezing the tax rate last year and lowering the tax rate for the first time in 20 years, the year before that, we had a very, very small increase in the tax rate of 0.4%, despite the fact that we have inflation or CPI of well over 6% during this time period. So this actually is a chart that shows where our tax rate started in the fiscal year of 2006 and where it is today. And you'll see a very steep increase in the village tax rate. But over the last 3 years, you'll see a flattening of the curve. And so one thing that I wanted to stress is that we like to be extremely fiscally responsible with your money and with taxpayer money. And I think that this chart demonstrates where the tax rate is. Of course, when we need to spend money, we will. And of course, there is inflation and rising costs. But despite that, we have managed to keep a very stable tax rate and have slightly lower taxes over the last 3 years. And so we hope that the village residents can see that in their tax bills. The other thing that I'd like to point out is that this is the unrestricted fund balance. And as you can see, the village, especially over the last 3 or 4 years, has dramatically increased its unrestricted cash balance and our cash reserves. So you can see that we have a very high projected cash balance, including a $3.6 million water quality reserve that I helped create in my first year in office. And that water quality reserve could go to fund a variety of water quality projects or serve as a down payment on our sewer system. But again, you can see that our balance sheet is in great shape. And I'll go to the next slide here. You'll see that since 2018, we have paid down substantial levels of debt, almost $4 million since 2018 and approximately $2 million since 2019 when I first took office. So in addition to keeping our tax rate flat, as well as having record high unrestricted cash surpluses, we've also paid down debt. So our balance sheet is extremely strong. We've maintained our AAA bond rating, and we have a very good, strong fiscal picture ahead of us. Now, I also wanted to take a quick update to talk about our comprehensive master plan. Prior to my election, the village had not updated its comprehensive master plan in approximately 20 years. The comprehensive master plan is the blueprint for moving forward in our village. And we talked about zoning and planning and things like open space preservation, protecting the village character, an arts and culture overlay district, which I'll discuss later on in this town hall. And we've already started to implement things in this comprehensive master plan, such as bike lanes. And there's a number of other things that we'll be implementing in the future. But this is critical towards to have a great future of Southampton Village. The other thing that I'll add is that this arts and culture overlay district may help save the movie theater. And we were able to survey and take the temperature of many village residents with this comprehensive master plan. There was a 2013 downtown plan that was done under the 2013 Planning Commission under the leadership of CMAC Sammy. And I think that is something that our village should update as well. I also want to take a few moments to talk about water quality. Southampton obviously is a water community, and we have significant beaches as well as significant freshwater bodies such as Lake Agawam and Old Town Pond. And we have made substantial progress in improving water quality. And in particular, just last year alone, we received approximately $12 million in clean water grants for an algae harvester, bioswales, rain gardens, permanent reactive barriers, and other techniques and technologies that will help clean our water. This is just a list of the many grants that we received. I'll leave this up there just for a few more seconds. But as you can tell, we have been extremely busy getting grant money. When I was first elected, the village would get approximately $100,000 or $200,000 of clean water grants. And again, last year, we got over $10 million of clean water grants. This was a record for the village. Other grants that are noteworthy, even outside of clean water, we received a grant to help digitize our records. We also received a $500,000 grant to help fix the Rogers Mansion, managed by Southampton History Museum. And that was also a very significant grant, a very competitive grant. So we've also got a variety of other grants outside of water quality grants. I also wanted to mention that we received a $5 million federal grant for an algae harvester, as well as a $5 million town grant from the Water Quality Fund to build the first non-demonstrative algae harvester in New York State and the largest in the country. And we are on track to build and install this algae harvester in 2024. And we'll be working with AECOM, which is a global engineering firm that has the technology for this algae harvester. What this algae harvester will do is, if you can see on the left side of the screen here, this was actually down in Florida, where it essentially can remove the toxic algae from the water and put back clean water into the water environment, while taking the algae biomass and either turning that algae biomass into biofuel or fertilizer, or if it's not in a high enough quantity, we can take that to a wastewater facility. I also wanted to touch on a moment for the traffic plan. When we did our comprehensive master plan, many residents said that traffic was the most important issue in Southampton Village. And I could imagine it's one of the most important issues in Southampton town. And we've taken a number of steps to help mitigate and improve traffic. First and foremost, we actually lowered the speed limit on all village side streets from 30 miles per hour down to 25 miles per hour. This actually took a lot of work, believe it or not, because the state law was that the speed limit throughout the state of New York was 30 miles per hour. So fortunately, we have an excellent state assembly person, Fred Thiel, who helped get this law changed in Albany. The governor signed this law into office. And then as a result, in Southampton Village, we were able to have a public hearing and amend our local code to lower speed limits on side streets down to 25 miles an hour, because safety is really one of the top priorities here. We also this fall ran a pilot program as far as turning goes. And one thing that I also helped do was at St. Andrews Road, I reached out to the New York State Department of Transportation, and they were able to get the light at St. Andrews Road to stay green for longer. And we also experimented with a flashing yellow light pilot program where during rush hour, we keep the Hill Street light by St. Andrews Road flashing yellow. And our police department did an outstanding job on that program. And it's something that I would like to reconsider this summer and next fall, because I do believe that the blinking light program on Hill Street helped facilitate traffic getting out of the village as quickly as possible. We had come up with the thesis that that red light by St. Andrews Road was stopping traffic flow on Hill Street. And as a result, the flashing yellow lights really helped improve traffic. I'll also take some questions about the no right turn program that was implemented this spring, and I'm happy to discuss that further in this town hall. I also just want to quickly touch upon a passion project. This is a project that I'm working on with Porter Bibb. Porter actually wanted to move the windmill from Stony Brook University over to Southampton Village on Nugent Street. Unfortunately, it's not something we're going to be able to do because there's not support over at Stony Brook, but we have been speaking to New York State as well as Stony Brook about making a replica windmill. And these are some of the designs for the replica windmill that we could put on Nugent Street. And as far as planning and design purposes, this would be really a great node and a point of attraction in the village. Most people look at the windmill in Sag Harbor and think that windmill is historic. But the reality is that that windmill, I believe, was built in the 1950s or 1960s. So this is something that we're going to go out and try to get some state money and raise some money privately on. This is also a project, the future parking lot excavation that I'm very proud of. We were able to raise $1.1 million, including almost $1 million from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. So very few to no taxpayer dollars will be used. But this fall, we're going to be excavating the parking lot, which is not a very attractive parking lot at the moment, behind Village Hall and behind Rite Aid and behind Tutto del Giorno. And we're going to be installing catch basins and bioswales. And this is just a nice rendering of what this might look like. But that parking lot that everyone knows has all these potholes and is very close to Lake Agawam will be a brand new fully excavated, fully repaired parking lot, hopefully with some permeable paving as well. But you'll see we're going to be installing these bioswales, and the bioswales prevent road runoff from getting into Lake Agawam, and this parking lot catches a lot of the road runoff, which is non-point source pollution getting into Lake Agawam. And again, this is a very exciting project, and in particular, what I'm most proud of is that we have $1.1 million for this project that we will not be spending village taxpayer dollars on, but we actually got grants from New York State and other sources. The next slide is really important to me. And I think that the Southampton Village Veterans Commission does such an outstanding job supporting our veterans. And this is something that I really believe in and think that it makes obviously our village and community very special. And we're very blessed to have some amazing veterans who are part of our community that make up the fabric of our community. And Memorial Day and Veterans Day are really the two most important holidays for me outside of July 4th. And I'm looking forward to seeing everybody this Memorial Day weekend. And it's really a special day for all, but these are just some pictures of some of the veterans celebrations and also Memorial Day. Just wanted to touch upon July 4th parade. Again, the CVO does such a great job. I wanted to thank Mr. Grisnick and Bob Jones for their hard work, as well as the entire veterans community for the July 4th parade. And we're also looking forward to seeing everybody at the July 4th parade. Wanted to also take a moment, and we're nearing the end of this brief PowerPoint presentation, and then we'll go into some questions and answers. But there's some proposed and passed legislation that I wanted to briefly touch upon. The next slide is going to be the Arts and Culture Overlay District, and I'll talk about that briefly in the next slide. But recently, we actually put restrictions on permits for those with pending violations. And so we have a beautiful community, and there every now and again, you'll find somebody who's, in a blatant violation of property maintenance codes, New York State property maintenance codes, Southampton Village building codes. And so we want to make sure that we don't want to see future building if people are already in violation. So we want to encourage people to get those violations fixed. I did propose a vacant property registry. I'm happy to talk about that a little more if anyone has any questions. But that was one mechanism as to try to reduce some of the vacant storefronts, because we see some of the same storefronts that are vacant year after year. It's really the same landlord. But the village is really shaping up. We've taken some steps to really help beautify and revitalize the downtown. And we have almost a full downtown at this point. We've also done things to make it easier for restaurants to have outdoor seating on village property. But I also want to make it easier for village restaurants to have more outdoor seating on their own property. And I've asked our planning department, led by our planning director, Alex Wallach, to look into this and to help us revise our code so that we can make that happen. And then we also passed some legislation that prohibits idling. We get a lot of complaints about quality of life, and that's something that we did. And then in addition, we led the charge here in the East End as far as the gas-powered leaf blower legislation. And starting in 2024, working with the Landscaping and Environmental Committee, there'll be a full ban on gas-powered leaf blowers starting in October of 2024. We learned that from the landscaping community, they were not able to get electric product due to the supply chain issues that were occurring. But again, in 2024, this will go into place. This is just a slide that touches upon the Arts and Culture Overlay District. You can see that it includes Job's Lane, Hill Street, Windmill Lane, and parts of Pond Lane. And the Arts and Culture Overlay District has a number of uses. Now, what an overlay district is that it's a zoning district that goes on top of these districts that are already in place. So there's two districts, VB, which is village business, and R20, which is a residential district. So this zoning district supersedes the zoning that's already in place. And what this does is, first, it makes arts and cultural uses, and it increases those number of uses. So if you can't do certain things related to arts and culture, cultural performances, musical performances, it either allows you to do it or makes those uses easier. It also creates an opportunity for live work space for artists, which is something that I think would be very nice to have in the village. Now, that is obviously pending correct septic and updated septic. So there's IA, innovative alternative low nitrogen septic systems, which can be used for this. And in addition, the village is working on its sewer district, and we have our map and plan already completed for our sewer district. And our sewer district, which we've made substantial progress on, will include Main Street, Job's Lane, parts of Hill Street, parts of Windmill Lane, parts of Pond Lane. It will include Town Hall. It will go all the way up Hampton Road. So we really did some hard work on creating this map and plan for the sewer district. And we're looking forward to doing a presentation either at the end of this month or the beginning of next month, just to show the public where we stand on the overall sewer district and walk everybody through that process of where we started and where we are now. And really the most important part of the Arts and Culture Overlay District is restrictions on uses for properties 6,000 square feet and larger. And what that means is that properties 6,000 square feet and larger will be restricted to arts and culture uses. They will also be allowed to have food and beverage as an accessory use. But what this does is critical. It will not allow our movie theater to become luxury condos. It will not allow it to be a big box retailer, and we fought very hard to avoid that. And so ultimately, the movie theater property will always be, until the end of time, with this zoning district in place, a arts and cultural institution. And basically, I had the foresight here in our comprehensive master plan to make sure this made it in there, and then we were able to extend the Arts and Culture Overlay District, because protecting our movie theater is one of the most important things that we could do. I'll also add that it's my understanding that a movie theater will stay there, but we really want to see a movie theater return, but the Arts and Culture Overlay District is really important to that. This was a long process because we had to go to the Suffolk County Planning Commission, and we had to get this approved, which it was unanimously. We did a secret review, and we also had a public hearing and zone change. And so this was quite a lengthy process, and it is now done, and we're very happy about it. I also want to let everyone know that we'll be doing some paving this spring and early summer. And last year, we did a substantial amount of paving on Powell Avenue, Old Town Road, Elm Street, Pulaski Street, and many other streets throughout the village. In fact, we actually worked with the Cornell engineering program to do an analysis of every single street in our village. And we now have a digital record of all the streets in our village, and every street is ranked on a scale from 100 to 0 on how they're doing for paving and when they need a paving job. I will also add that we are almost ready to pave. And again, this is a national grid job. This is not a village job, but obviously we are well aware of the work on West Prospect Street, as well as Halsey Street and other neighboring streets. We were actually able to put a stop work order on National Grid for other projects until they finished this one up, and they were able to move that along in a more expedited fashion. They told us 2 weeks ago that we had to wait 30 days. And once that 30-day mark sets, we'll be able to pave. But National Grid has instructed us that they are done with the work on West Prospect Street. It is not a good site there, but we put a lot of pressure on National Grid to finish up as quickly as we can so that the streets can get paved for this summer. So that is coming. And we're also, again, happy to answer any questions on that. And then finally, we just put a slide on serving Southampton. Right in the middle here was a ceremony we did. We named Railroad Plaza John Holden Plaza after a World War II veteran and just really amazing person, John Holden. And this is a picture of the ceremony that we had where we celebrated the renaming of John Holden Plaza. Just on the left here is you'll see the work that we asked the Suffolk County Water Authority to do on the water tower. This water tower had not been cleaned in over 10 years. We called up Suffolk County Water Authority. We have an excellent relation with them, and they were able to put us on the list for power washing, and this is done. So this now dirty water tower is now clean and beautiful. And so when you're driving around this summer, you'll see that we have a beautiful, clean water tower as well. Bottom left is a initiative we had worked on with County Legislator Bridget Fleming and Sheriff Errol Toulon's office about the START program. And that program is really helping people get back, in a good, positive way. And then we also relaunched Southampton Fest, thanks to the work of Nancy Kane. And we had our Southampton Fest celebration this past fall, though unfortunately we were rained out on Saturday. We're looking forward to restarting Southampton Fest again. And just below, we took a nice picture with one of our students and one of our future mayors. And so this concludes the presentation parts of the town hall. But at this point, we will open this up to questions. And I will have Patrick, who is our moderator, start to answer those questions. And I will stop my screen share right now.
Okay. Well, we received a few questions beforehand. So I'm just going to start with the first one. Is it true that currently the 4 trustees and the mayor receive lifetime health benefits after 5 years of service? If accurate and given obvious costs to the village in the millions, what is your position on the situation and effect on residents' costs?
That's a good question, and that is true. There's a current policy in place that all part-time elected officials get lifetime benefits that vest after 5 years, and they vest at the age of 55. And I do not want to obviously touch anything or change anything for those people who are already vested. That would not be fair to them. But one policy that for several years I have been trying to implement is the elimination of this plan. I don't think this is fair to the village residents, and I don't think this is fair to the taxpayers who expect their elected officials to be fiscally responsible. And so I do not need lifetime benefits, and I don't think that our part-time elected officials should be taking them after they serve for 5 years. So I did put this item to be debated on. The trustees stated that they needed additional study. We had additional study, and the study actually showed that the cost of this lifetime benefits was even more expensive than my initial conservative analysis. I had actually projected that this could cost in the future over $100,000 per year, but the Budget and Finance Committee and the Planning Commission had actually determined that just with our current board alone, it would cost $6.7 million just for our current board alone. And so I'm going to ask the Board of Trustees again to eliminate this. Unfortunately, I did receive significant pushback. The trustees asked for a study. We delivered a study. No action was taken after the study. But I do believe there's been significant public pressure and public awareness on this issue. And I think that any fiscally responsible government would want to do away with this program. And I actually modeled this initiative after what the village of West Hampton Beach did in 2015, where they also eliminated the lifetime benefits for the part-time elected officials. In this discussion, some of the trustees had actually said that they wanted to maybe eliminate this as part of a trade, maybe an increase in compensation or longer terms. But I also disagree with that. And actually part of the study that took place actually stated that they did analysis on many East End communities. And it turns out that I, as mayor, making $25,000 per year, I was the second lowest paid mayor out of the study that they did, with the highest paying mayor making $109,000 per year. And our trustees, who really have a part-time job, which is they get paid $15,000 per year, turned out to be the highest paid group out of the municipalities that they had surveyed. So I think this is just a common sense, fiscally responsible resolution that we could pass. It's something that I'm hoping to get done as soon as possible. But I think that all the facts and numbers are very clear at this point in time. And it's something that I think the public would like to see us undertake.
Okay, next question that we received. Can you address the concerns regarding the proposed sewage treatment facility?
So that's a very good question. So there's two points I'm going to discuss here. So first and foremost, I think that our village is really looking forward to having a sewer district. It's funny that when I was first elected in 2019, at that debate that was moderated by the Southampton Press, Joe Shaw had asked the question, do you want a sewer or do you want to just do IA septic systems? And I was really the only person at that time to say we must have a sewer. I think it's really important. Things have changed. Village residents are now asking, well, when is the sewer going to arrive and how fast can you get it done? And I think the reason for that change is because I think everyone at this point has realized that we need a sewer, number one, for the revitalization of our downtown, so we could have more restaurants, more activities, more experiences. And number two, so we can have cleaner water. Nitrogen loading is one of the most important and most severe causes of the pollution of Lake Agawam and Old Town Pond and other water bodies throughout the east end of Long Island. And Suffolk County has more unsewered homes and more unsewered businesses than anywhere else, I believe, in the entire country. And that's not going to change unless we have a sewer district. Again, West Hampton actually did a nice job on their sewer, and they actually had modeled their sewer district off of something that was brought up in 2015. So having a sewer is extremely important, both for the business community and for the environment. Now, from the town perspective, there was a number of concerns about where this sewer will go. And what I will say is that there's a number of options and a number of parcels that the village looked at. We examined really every parcel imaginable that fit the criteria, which would probably have to have about 3 acres, has to be the right size and shape, can't be near any wells, in which there are plenty of wells around Southampton. And so what I will say is that I think we're going to be having this presentation again, either the end of this month or next month. And we're going to be outlining the entire process, where we started, where we're out at now. We're going to have as much public input as possible. We are going to listen to the residents. We're going to listen to their concerns and their suggestions. And this is a process that will not be done without significant public input. We've been working for some time on this, and we're working to get this into a form that we could present to the overall community. So that's very important to note, but we are making good progress. The map and plan is done. And again, we will not do anything with substantial public input. And sorry, that was my my dog there. He was just watching the town hall as well, but I think he's found another friend to play with.
Okay. Next question received reads, update on what is happening or planned for the north side of Nugent Street, and status of empty stores, including Old Schmidt's location.
Right. So empty stores, you know, when I first took office, and I'm a business owner as well. Many people know my store that I own on Main Street in Southampton. And I also have another business in East Hampton on Main Street, on a Newtown Lane there as well. And Southampton Village has had some vacant storefronts for quite some time. This year, as I mentioned earlier, is shaping up quite well. We're seeing a lot of new businesses come to the village. There's always 1, 2, sometimes 3 landlords that always have those vacant storefronts. And, you know, I would like to do more to address that issue, but the village is shaping up quite nicely. But I do want to mention that we really have to be very friendly towards our business community, and that if I'm lucky enough to have an additional term, I really want to make sure that we can amend some of our codes to make sure we're even more friendly towards our business community and more inviting towards the community to invite investment in our community in downtown. We were very sorry, and it was quite disappointing to see Schmidt's leave Southampton Village. We're happy that they have a new location over in Quogue, but it was really a very disappointing, very unfortunate day when we lost them, and we tried to help Schmidt's in any way possible, but unfortunately they were not able to stay. But we would like to encourage anybody to go there, and we'll do whatever we can to make sure we make it easy for any business who wants to come into the village of Southampton. And then I'll also say it was quite heartbreaking to lose DJ's. My fiance and soon-to-be wife's sister actually used to work there for many years. And to see another local business like DJ's leave the village was also really another unfortunate situation. And so we really want to do whatever we can to retain our local businesses and do whatever we can to help our business community, which is critical to the health and the revitalization of our downtown, which is why I also mentioned earlier, trying to make it easier for businesses expand some outdoor seating options, and to really update our village downtown plan, which has been updated since 2013. And one thing that I proposed to the Board of Trustees, which I would ultimately love to have approval on, of course, is a landscaping plan for a downtown. I'd actually reached out to Martyrs as well as Chris LaGuardia Design to do a landscaping plan for our downtown to really continue those beautification efforts. And I believe that we can work with the Village Beautification Committee, the Rose Society, and other nonprofits in order to raise money to really enhance those beautification efforts. One thing I'd like to do as it relates to that is we've identified walls, blank walls throughout the village by Herrick's Hardware, for example, or by the store the West Side. And I'd love to make some of those walls beautiful floral arrangements, depending on the sunlight, and cover up some of those walls, as well as increase the number of plantings and trees and whatnot. And I'll also add that we recently became a Tree City USA, which is an honor that is a recognition about planting a certain number of trees and reaching certain thresholds.
Okay, I believe that the next question is one you received before the meeting. You should have it. I think it was on your phone.
Okay, so there was one question that Patrick sent me, and I think it's important that I read it. Patrick is a Village Hall employee, and so I think it's just more appropriate I read this question. The question is, can you provide a helpful explanation for the shift in support from your trustees? I voted for them as well as you in the election, and I'm genuinely interested in understanding the reasons for this change because the reporting was very vague. Okay, so I'll start by saying that since I was elected in 2019, I have made my fair share of mistakes. That's natural for anyone who's starting a new job, particularly for someone who is coming in passionate but yet green, in order to be the mayor of a very important community such as Southampton Village, with a lot of interests at play. And like I said, I have certainly made my fair share of mistakes. And I'm happy to say that I now can look back during that time and believe that I've learned from many of those mistakes. And those mistakes have turned into a great learning experience for me. I've worked with other mayors. I've joined the board of the Suffolk County Villages Officials Association, and I've found mentors, other mayors, past mayors who have been able to help guide me along the way. But this is a very tough job, and it's inevitable that you'll make mistakes along the way. And I'm happy that I've learned from many of those mistakes. And I think I can turn those mistakes into the betterment for this village. And I now know how to really work and within a governmental framework. And I've researched the law and municipal law and village code, et cetera. But I think that one of the worst mistakes that I've made was really not vetting people before I backed them. And in particular, this was with the last 2022 election, where I was approached by Bill Manger, who is running against me in this election. And he approached me and he said, I really believe in what you're doing and I want to help you. And I'd like to join your team. And I ended up really running his campaign and telling a lot of my supporters to vote for him. And unfortunately, I hadn't vetted him properly. I knew that he did come from a Washington, D.C. background. He served 2 tours in Washington, D.C. Most recently, he served doing the PPP loans in the Trump administration. And I did know that going into it, but I really thought that I could work with anybody. And I really believe that, and I still do. But unfortunately, when he came in, he did bring his Washington, D.C. brand of politics into the village. He had an agenda that I was warned about, but I really didn't want to believe it. And very quickly, 3 months in, he really let everyone know that he was running for mayor. And he made my life very tough in Village Hall, and made it very hard for me to do my job. Deals were cut, things unfolded. I stayed positive throughout the process. Anyone who's watched the meetings know that I've always conducted myself professionally and have maintained my composure. But bringing this Washington, D.C. style politics into the village, I don't think was for the betterment of anybody, and definitely not for the betterment of our village board. I'll also say that local politics, like national politics, there's a lot of interests at play. And just like in national politics in Southampton Village, there are people and groups who are very politically involved. And some of these groups are very well backed, they're very wealthy, and they're very powerful, and they have a lot of influence over all of the elected officials. But I've always thought of myself as being independent, and I've always wanted to make the right decisions for the village. And so when representatives of this group came to me and had asked me to do certain things, there are certain things I believe that were the right things for the village and certain things that were not the right things for the village. And I did have to tell an individual from this group that I could not agree with some of the things that he wanted the board to do. But I will say very clearly that there are groups, particularly one specific group, that has tremendous influence over all of the Board of Trustees. But I have been always independent. I have always worked for you. I've always worked for the entire village of Southampton. And one of the reasons why everyone has always seen me knocking on every door and shaking every hand and returning every phone call, whether it be at 6 o'clock in the morning or 12 o'clock at night, is because I can be independent when I know I have your support. And I think that makes me a better mayor by being able to be independent and working for the whole village. There were also a few specific decisions and votes that took place that did have a specific impact on our overall board and did impact my relationship with some of the trustees. In particular, the most important vote that took place was the vote to appoint a chief of police, or in that particular case, in December 2022, a second acting and provisional chief. In December 2022, the Board of Trustees, without my support, went ahead and appointed an individual to be an acting or provisional chief of police. Just to clarify, in order to be a permanent chief of police, you must pass a Suffolk County and New York State civil service examination. This individual, again, I voted against this appointment due to a variety of reasons, which I'm going to outline right now. This individual did not pass the chief of police exam. And you don't just have to pass it, you actually have to score in the top 3 in the entire state of New York. And I knew that you had top ranking members from the NYPD department coming out, top ranking members from the state police coming out, from Southampton Town Police coming out, from East Hampton Town Police coming out, Riverhead, et cetera, et cetera. Even our own outstanding members of our police department were going to be taking this test. So it made little to no sense for me to appoint somebody in December who had not taken or passed the test. Oh, and by the way, I also forgot to mention that the last test that was given, the chief of Bedford, New York, who is the exam instructor, also took that test. So scoring the top 3 was going to be next to impossible. So it made no sense for me to appoint somebody who likely was not going to score in the top 3 and then would have to be removed from his position after we just finished training him and he just got acquainted with the village. So I felt in that situation that I made the best decision for the community. In particular, I also felt that many residents and their voices were not heard. I think that we have an outstanding local police department, and I think that somebody who had local ties, and we have exceptional people with local ties and exceptional people in our own department, I felt that it was unfair to exclude some of those people from that process. And I do want to add that as a result of my no vote, we now have a new test that's being administered. The individual who was hired decided not to take the position. And our captain, who's done an outstanding job, and I'm happy to talk about any of this later on as well, is now signed up for a provisional exam, which means that it's a different exam from the rest of the state. And I believe that she's done an outstanding job. And I think that this time we're going to get it right. And I think that my vote no for this appointment, especially with the test situation, was the right vote for the community. I also just wanted to address a few things that had come out. I also had not had an opportunity to look at the contract. Neither did the village attorney, but it was my understanding that the contract that was offered to someone that we had met about 3 times was a 5-year contract for a substantial compensation package. And there was no reason to give a 5-year contract. Typically, if you have a new employee, you don't want to give a 5-year contract out. You can have a smaller or shorter contract so that we can evaluate and then extend later on. And there's a number of things and problems with that agreement that took place. I don't need to go so much into the details there, but I also wanted to address another thing. There were some rumors that took place. One of those was that I was actually in support of this candidate and I didn't tell anybody that took place. That's 100% false. I made it very clear to the entire Board of Trustees that I would not be supporting this candidate, and that I expressed my concerns as to why this person's resume came in. I received this person's resume. I forwarded it to the board, as is my obligation to do, but at no time did I ever tell the board that I would be voting for this person. I actually called each and every member of the board up and told them that I could not support this person, again, because I felt it was the best decision to make for the community. I also will say that there were people who back some of the trustees who had called me up and demanded to me in no uncertain terms that I vote for this individual. And to those people, I simply said, I can't do it. I have to do what's best for the community. And that was a very tough decision to make. And it was a tough decision to make because on the one hand, you want to keep the flow of business going well. You want to go along and you want to get along. But there are other times where you have to go with your convictions and you have to go with what you believe is right. And in this particular situation with the chief of police appointment, I did what I thought was right, and I did what I thought was best for the community. The second vote that came up was one that I also felt was troubling. And it was a vote that I also had to disagree with the trustees on a 3-2 vote. We have an outstanding beach in Cooper's Beach. It's number 3 again in the country. And it's number 3 because we have outstanding village employees who come in and make sure that beach is spotless and clean and pristine. Matt Weeks runs the beach. He's an outstanding beach manager. We have the best and most elite lifeguards. We have students coming in to help work in Cooper's Beach over the summer. We have an ocean rescue department, which we help start to help keep our beaches safer as well. But there was a situation where we had a great local person who had managed that concession stand for 3 years, helped get us through the pandemic. And his bid was in as well as another bid. And while I'm optimistic about the new bid and the new person who's taken us over, I believe that our former operator was the right choice. And one thing that was deeply troubling to me, and while she may have recused herself from the process, the person who was awarded the Cooper's Beach concession stand was the village administrator's brother-in-law. And I have fought for transparency. I have fought to end nepotism, and awarding that contract was really against everything that I stood for. But what was more troubling about that vote, and again, I felt the right thing to do was to bring this to the public's attention, was that the awarding of that contract was not even made and brought to the public's attention. It was not on our agenda. And the vote itself, which was not illegal, but was wrong, took place in private. And that is not what this administration is about. It is not what I think is appropriate for the village. And the fact that that vote took place without the public even knowing about it was totally unacceptable to me. And again, I had a choice to let that one go, or I had a choice to bring that to the public's attention. And again, my job is to represent all of the village and all of the residents and all of the stakeholders. And that just did not sit well with me. And again, this is a tough situation because sometimes there's no easy answers. Sometimes the outcome is 2 losing outcomes. But in that situation, I again thought I did what was right. And another situation that we spoke about earlier that I thought was the right thing to do was to end the lifetime benefits for current and future elected officials. And again, that was a debate that came up. It was, again, something that I am on a different page than the trustees. I believe they will be changing their tune on this one. But that is another situation where I had to disagree. So to answer that question, in summary, everyone in politics, unfortunately, has an agenda. There are interest groups, particularly one that has a lot of influence over the board. And number three, there was a number of votes that we had very differences of opinions on. Everyone heard my dog bark there in the background, but as President Truman said about politics, if you want a friend, get a dog. And I did get a dog, but the reality is that government, local government, and politics is a very difficult and sometimes tough business to be in. But I think that most residents and stakeholders know that every day that goes by, I work extremely hard for them. I work extremely hard for the village because I care about the village, because when I have a family, I'd like them to live here, and because I own a business in this village, and I'm very passionate about this job. And I really want to make Southampton Village a better place. And for better or for worse, I am not a quitter. I stick with things. I let things roll off my shoulder at times. And I'm committed to the village, and I'm committed to making it a better place. And I'm also committed to doing what's best for everybody and not just best for a select few group of people.
Okay. The next question you received was, will the village change the new no right turn signs to reflect the trustees' vote and approval was to restrict the no right turn onto Hill Street Monday through Friday only? So I guess, would you vote to change the no right hand turn to off of Hill Street to Monday and Friday only?
So it's a really good question. And for those who are not aware of this, I'll just quickly explain what took place. There was a traffic study that suggested that we do no right turns from 3 to 7 p.m. on Somerset, on Bishops, and on Corrigan. And part of that came about due to safety measures that were negatively affecting our village residents. And we want to make safety the top priority here in the village. And so thanks to the outreach of many residents, as well as a traffic study, the Board of Trustees unanimously decided to make no right turns. Now, that was implemented on a 7-day per week basis. And we've gotten some calls from residents to make that Monday through Friday. And what I will say is that I think it's very important to listen to everybody on this issue and to revisit this with our traffic engineers. But I don't want to do anything without hearing from the residents. One thing that I suggested that I wish we can put into place, and not just for this portion of the community, was to create a traffic focus group or a traffic committee where we get together concerned residents, we get together members of the police department, the fire department, the EMS department, as well as our traffic engineers. And I'd like to have a collaborative effort with as much public input as possible to come up with traffic solutions that are best for our community. And I think that's something that we should move forward with. And I hope to get the support to do a traffic committee or a traffic focus group so we can get all input and make the best decisions on behalf of all of our residents.
Okay. Next question received. Why not add proposals on the ballot to change the terms of trustees to 4 years, so we can only have elections every 2 years instead of every year? The term for the mayor could remain at 2 or be changed to 4 years. Elections every year don't foster cooperation.
Well, that is something that we can put on the ballot. In fact, the New York State law has very specific criteria as to what can go on the ballot. And we could put on the ballot a change from a 2-year term to a 4-year term. Unfortunately, we will not be able to do that this year because there's a time limitation and we're too close to this 2023 election, but it's something that the trustees could vote on to put on the ballot for next year. Now, there's two sides to that, as there is with most things. On the one hand, a 4-year term could be considered good government. It could be possible to allow for the elected officials to have more time to accomplish their goals. Sometimes 2 years is just simply not enough to see things get to the finish line. On the other hand, 2-year terms are also important because it gives the residents some additional input and additional control over who we elect to serve them. And as far as I'm concerned, I am happy to go out there, and I'm happy to campaign, and I'm happy to meet residents, and I'm happy to be in a ballot every 2 years. Of course, I would love a 4-year term. Every elected official would. Talk to the representatives in the United States Congress. I am sure they would love a 4-year term. But I would say that I'm happy to have a 2-year term, and I'm happy for our community to have a little more input and a little more control over what happens. And I think that if we elect the wrong people, or the village wants to make a change, the 2-year terms allow us to do that more frequently. Again, the 4-year terms allow for a little more time to get things done. So that's, again, could be a good thing to put on the ballot. But I would say that it's really up to the community on that one. But I'm happy to do a 2-year term because I believe in accountability. And I believe that us as elected officials, we serve you. We serve the community. And that is the most important concept and tenet of public service, is that we serve you. And so if we're doing a good job serving you, you can continue to vote us in. And if not, you can continue to make a change. And I actually think some of the 2-year terms also hold us more accountable and make us work a little harder too. So, but I agree with the person who asked that question, that maybe a 4-year term could help us get things done and have a little more of a long-term perspective.
Okay. Next question. What plan, if any, is in place to manage the incoming and outgoing traffic to Southampton?
Well, one thing I'll talk about, and we did do these traffic studies, but I think we did do more, is that I am always in touch with our county team. I talk to the DPW department, I talk to the county executive's office, I talk to our county legislature, and I am pushing the county as much as possible to conduct a global and comprehensive traffic study that includes all of County Road 39. The reality is that everything comes and goes through County Road 39, and until we can fix County Road 39, we are really working with one hand because it is very hard to solve traffic problems if we don't fix County Road 39. So one thing that I've always worked on is making sure that we can really get the attention and the budget from the county to help us out with County Road 39. I would actually commend the town highway superintendent, Charlie McCardle, who I think is trying a couple different options, including the flashing lights program over in Hampton Bays. But getting people in and out of the East End is critical. And I think the county is going to have to play a major role in that. As I mentioned earlier, we reached out to the New York State Department of Transportation to help us with that, extending the green light there. And again, safety is the #1 priority for our village, and traffic goes hand in hand with safety. And so it's important that we're in constant communication with our village residents to figure out how we can help improve and traffic flow and mitigate traffic issues and improve safety.
Okay. Next question. What is the status of the hospital move? Will the neighbors of the current hospital have any input into what is permitted to take its place once it's moved to the new SUNY campus?
Another great question. And the more input, the better. So the answer in short is absolutely. Neighbors who live near the hospital and stakeholders alike, we would like to have as much public input as possible. In fact, we started the process through the comprehensive master plan. So anyone can go look at the comp plan and see what we've written up on the hospital. But we've heard a variety of options. But what I wanted to ensure the village residents is that we will do the best thing for the village as far as taking as much public input as possible, listening to village residents, and making sure that whatever happens at the hospital fits within the overall character of the village. We do not want anything that's out of character with the village. We do not want anything that the residents will not like. And so staying within the overall frameworks and the character of our incredible and historic village is extremely important. Open space is, of course, extremely important when we can make that happen. But we'll be in close communication at the appropriate times with the neighbors, with the groups, to make sure that this is fits into the fabric of the community. I will say I've spoken to the hospital, and they are fundraising, but in my opinion, this is not something that's going to be happening in the near term or the short term. I think that the hospital does have some fundraising to do before a move takes place. So there is still plenty of time on this. This could be as much as 5 years out. It could be even more depending on the fundraising efforts, but this is not something that's going to be happening over the next year or two. But we do want to stay ahead of the curve. We do want to make sure we're in touch with the village residents, and those who have questions or concerns can feel free to reach out to me or the village. And also, I would just recommend looking at the village-wide comprehensive master plan for the portion that relates to the hospital.
Okay. Next question. Are the village building codes on the board's agenda? The scale of development is ruining the character of our community. As a revision of the regulations and building code being considered, we need affordable family homes, not larger structures.
That's correct. We do need affordable family homes and not massive structures or McMansions. And the reason why I had asked to update the village-wide comprehensive master plan and led the charge there was because we needed a blueprint for the village moving forward. And that comprehensive master plan, which I would recommend that everybody read, lays out steps to have more open space and green space. It lays out steps to avoid some of the McMansions. It talks about updated design guidelines. It talks about the need for more housing opportunities for people who live and work in the village. We are slowly losing our year-round community, and we are slowly and not so slowly more losing our workforce. So those are very important things. But what we don't want to see is we don't want to see more McMansions and more bulky homes that don't fit in with the character of the village. So updates to our code are in order. They'll be consistent with our comprehensive master plan, which is why we adopted it. And I also wanted to say that since I've been elected, we have not seen any luxury condo developments, which is the opposite of what we need here in Southampton Village. We do not need more luxury condos. It is against really what it says in the comprehensive master plan, and it is against really the character of the overall village. So we haven't seen any condo developments have gone up since I've been elected. Prior to me being elected, obviously people see some of these condo developments off Hill Street and other things like that. We're good with what we have. We also have avoided some major subdivisions taking place. And there are some frameworks in the comprehensive master plan that talk about the best way to subdivide when it is consistent with our zoning code. But that's a great question. And we all come out to Southampton Village to enjoy the beautiful character and the historic nature of the village. And it's very important to preserve as much open space and land as possible and to create more green space. And we have a very good relationship with the town board. We can tap into the Community Preservation Fund, which has record high cash levels. And so there may be opportunities down the road when this sort of thing comes up, and we're going to need to tap into our Community Preservation Fund, maybe work with the Peconic Land Trust as well. But also fostering good relationships with the town is really important. When I was first elected, the village didn't have the best relationship with Southampton Town. We now have a really good relationship with Southampton Town, not just the town board, but the town trustees. And having a great relationship with the town board is important because obviously they control the CPF fund, and also goes and shows you that they've been very sympathetic towards the village by awarding us a lot of good water quality grants. And I think they've, as a town board, have done an excellent job. And they have a very tough job. It actually is probably harder than being a village mayor as being a town board member, town supervisor. So I give them a lot of credit as well.
Okay. Next question. Well, this next one is really more of a statement. Acting Police Chief Hurto has done an outstanding job for the village. It's about time the mayor and all the trustees in one unified voice give the chief the support she deserves and the job she's earned.
Well, it's more of a statement than a question, but I will second that. I think our acting chief, Suzanne Hurto, has done an outstanding job. She's done an outstanding job keeping our village extremely safe. She's done a great job when it comes to some of the traffic initiatives that we want to put in place. And I think that she has a very good working relationship with the amazing men and women of our Southampton Village Police Department. And I'm very happy that she is still our acting chief. And again, that goes back to that discussion about the chief of police appointment. I think it should be obvious to everybody that had I not made that vote, she would not be the acting chief right now. We'd have a different acting chief. So I'm very happy about the current situation. She's done an outstanding job. And there was a civil service test that was administered by the Suffolk County Civil Service Commission. We'll be able to reach her on a list because she was on a promotional test. Thank goodness that was offered. And I will say to this resident or the stakeholder who asked that question, I would be more than happy to support Captain Hurto in an appointment to be a permanent chief of police. I think that she's done a great job. I think that she's helped improve the police department. I think that she's done a great job applying for grants. We've worked to improve our technology and our security and our resources. She's led the charge in doing the re-accreditation process. She knows the community. She's a local person. Just today, I was actually meeting with a resident, and the resident said that also a veteran who I'll see Memorial Day weekend. He said that he's known her for a very long time. So I really appreciate that statement that was offered, and I would have no problem making that a possibility pending the Suffolk County Civil Service test results. And again, I just wanted to thank her and the entire Southampton Village Police Department for their hard work, keeping us safe. And while we're on this topic, I wanted to thank all our first responders. We have an outstanding fire department led by Chief Manny Escobar. He followed a number of other great chiefs, as well as Chief Alfie, Tony Stevens, and others. And we just have an outstanding fire department. They did a great job a few weeks earlier when there was a fire at Union Bar and Burger. They did an incredible save there with minimal damage to property and no loss of life. And we also have an outstanding EMS department. We have a great chief right now. We have a great second chief who will be our chief next year. And we want to make sure that we do as much as we can to support those groups. And we recently formed an ocean rescue department, and we were able to work with our state partners to get them recognized by New York State as well. So I'm very happy and very pleased and honored to be working hand in hand with all of our first responders and emergency service personnel.
Okay. This next question we just received. Is it true that the 4 Southampton trustee positions are the highest paid out of numerous Hamptons municipalities? Is it true that the Southampton Village Mayor position is the second lowest paid out of numerous Hamptons municipalities? What is your position on this?
Well, as I said earlier, I can just speak for myself. The job of mayor is one where you really come in and you really volunteer your time and services to help support the community. We are public servants, so I do this job because I love it, I'm passionate about it, and because I want to make the community better. So I make $25,000 a year. It is not the highest salary. If you look at the number of hours that I work, it's probably close to $6 to $8 an hour that I make. But I'm okay with that. I'm not out there proactively looking for a raise. I'm happy to do the job and I'm happy to serve, as is. Of course, if I'll take a raise, but not something I'm going out and proactively looking for. It's not something that I need. I just want to serve the community. I've heard people say that, it's important that you give, raises because you want to attract more talent and more people to the jobs. But I'll also say they're tough jobs, regardless of whether you make $25,000, $55,000, $85,000 a year. So I think that it's going to be a thankless job, regardless. And there's really no amount of money that would really change my enthusiasm or my efforts for the job.
Okay. Next question. Is it true that trustees and the mayor receive lifetime health benefits after 5 years of service? If accurate and given obvious costs to the village in the millions, what is your position on the situation?
Well, we already answered that question. And again, I'll just say that I clearly would like to end that policy there. But I see a few more questions for Q&A, but happy to answer questions a few times. And again, this town hall is live right now on YouTube and also on Facebook. And we'll also be making sure that we post this. So if you don't catch anything now, or if you're joining us now, you could always go back after this town hall and watch from the very beginning to hear some of the answers to some of these questions. We know that some of these questions are pressing and that many residents have some of the same concerns. So again, you could always watch from the very beginning if you're just joining us now.
What are your 3 top priorities for the village?
Well, that's a great question. There's so many priorities, but really you have to focus on the top 3. So one, obviously, is the continued revitalization of the downtown. That goes part and parcel with our sewer district. Number 2 is obviously water quality in the environment, and we've seen all the great water quality projects that we've worked on. In particular, I really would like to get the algae harvester into gear. And I'd like to see the permanent reactive barrier, which is a fancy way to describe wood chips that prevent polluted groundwater from getting into the lake, as well as the bioswales on West Main Street. So the environment and water quality is obviously a top priority. We're actually retrofitting Village Hall right now with a company called Johnson Controls to make it more energy efficient. And, number 3 is really to keep the historic character of the village in place. And I'll just add in a 3B, which is really just to provide just a high level of customer service to the village residents. I am a business owner, a small business owner by trade and a retailer by trade. And in my business, we provide a high level of customer service to our customers. And we want to provide that same level of customer service to the village residents. And I think that most residents know that you get quick response time and you get amazing service from us here in our office and in Village Hall. And one thing that we did in particular with that quality of life and improving customer service and improving quality of life is the C-Click Fix app that we rolled out. Most people know about this, but there's an app on your smartphone. It's one word. It's called C-Click Fix. We've solved, I think, over 700 quality of life issues, but you can download the app. You can take pictures of any issues, and then it gets dispatched to all the respective department heads, and we solve those issues. And then as it relates to quality of life, so I guess there's 4 things here, is that we've actually rolled out a code enforcement division. We've hired some part-time code enforcement officers. And we really want to improve code enforcement and quality of life, particularly as it relates to things that people are always seeing, U-turns, things like that. But basically, those are the 3 most important things with quality of life and code enforcement really being a close 4th.
Okay, the next question you received is, would the village ever consider donating some of the cap surplus to the construction of the Aqua Center? The location borders the village and all village residents would benefit from its existence.
Well, it's an interesting question. I don't think that, and I know, I think I was answering this question and I wanted to wish that person, all of the best of luck. And I really applaud your efforts there. But I do not think that a village can donate to a nonprofit organization. I believe, I could be incorrect, but I believe that it's inconsistent with the New York State Controller guidelines. So I don't think the village would be allowed to do that.
Okay. What are some of your key environmental objectives over the next 2 years?
Well, we've touched upon that, so I'll maybe refer that question to look at all the grant money that we've gotten, but really improving water quality and obviously we're becoming more energy efficient is very important. But we have really a number of projects, environmental projects that we've touched upon that we're embarking on right now. But a few projects that we haven't touched upon is on Old Town Pond, and if you drive down Old Town Road, as you get close to the beach, you'll see that there's work going on right now, and that's another bioswale that we're putting there. Again, a bioswale is natural species of plants that prevent road runoff and other toxic elements from getting into the lake. also fully funded with grant money. I think that the county actually helped us out with some grants there too. And also there's a new technology called a constructed wetlands or a natural treatment system that we're also working on, and we received some grant money to really use that technology as well. That will actually treat some of the groundwater as well as surface water. And we're actually designing a constructed wetlands or natural treatment system right now as well. That's a little more complicated than a bioswale, but we're really working on some new technology in the green world and green infrastructure.
Okay, this one relates to the lifetime benefits. Essentially, they're asking if you are going to be putting forth another resolution to eliminate those.
I did write a letter to the editor, and I did introduce that lifetime benefit resolution, the elimination of that for current and future elected officials. So at our Tuesday meeting, that resolution will be on the agenda. And I am cautiously optimistic that the trustees are going to adopt this at this point. Again, as we mentioned, study was done. We've had a number of discussion items on this. This has been brought up, I think, as early as 2020. And I think that if the trustees did not vote on it and did not vote to eliminate them, that would not be in the best of the public's interest, and it would not be very fiscally responsible. So I do think that this time around, the resolution that goes on the agenda will be passed. And again, I think it's a good thing that we can do for the village, a good thing for its fiscal health. And again, I think it's in the best interest of all the village residents.
Okay, you've received a few of these questions, so I'm just going to ask, what is the status of the 1 Bowers Lane parcel in relation to the sewer?
Well, it's a very good question, and I understand that a lot of town residents have expressed their deepest and strongest concerns about this. And at this point, I would invite them to come to the presentation that we're going to have. And at the end of the day, they are correct. This is one of the parcels that we did consider for the sewer. Because again, the sewer has to be a certain size and shape. It's got to have leaching fields. But what I will say is that this is a long process, and I appreciate and respect the town residents' concerns on this. But I was told by the town board that this is no longer an option. I was told that there's no willing seller, and at the end of the day, the town board is, if we would apply for the CPF for this, they'd have to vote on it. So I am told that this is no longer an option. Again, I'm just communicating what I have heard, but it was one of the many sites that we considered for this, and we're going to be moving forward with this sewer presentation very soon. And again, the sewer presentation is not just going to say, well, which parcels we considered. It's going to start with the beginning of this process. It's going to show all the work that we've done, where we started, where we are now, and where we'd like to go with it. So I hope that helps answer the question. I do appreciate many residents' concerns on that, and we will not be doing anything without input from the community. There's many things that have to take place, including a secret review, including a application to the town board. And so I appreciate the many questions that have come in on this topic, and we're looking forward to making a public presentation. And I do believe that these town residents do have every right to be upset about this. And so we hope to make this presentation and get as much input as possible.
Okay. What areas of the comprehensive plan are you looking to implement in the future?
Well, that's another great question. There's so much in the comprehensive master plan to unpack. I'm very happy we got the arts and culture overlay district done, the bike lanes done. But what I think is really important to do is really to figure out ways, as I mentioned earlier, to have more green space and more open space in the village, and amending some of our code to really make this a possibility to have more green space and more open space. And in particular, one of the things I'm most excited about is really some of the plans for the downtown. What I've been, really envisioning for a few years now is really this vibrant downtown. I've spoke about activating Nugent Street and activating Windmill Lane, and really creating nodes and more walkability and making our downtown more pedestrian friendly. Because when I think about Nugent Street and when I think about Windmill Lane, those are very, as I like to call them, pedestrian hostile streets. And we want to make it so that we can really use the art center and that Central Village parking lot as a way to connect all of the village. I would like to take the comprehensive master plan a step further, implement what's in there, but it recommended further study on that downtown plan, and it recommended further study on really activating the downtown. There's some phenomenal architects and planners there that we can tap into. I believe there's an architecture firm that I reached out to just casually called West 8. They actually, I think they designed Governor's Island in New York City. But there's so many talented people out there that can really help us really activate our downtown. And again, that goes hand in hand with the landscaping plan that I'm hoping to put together, really just to start with some of the beautification efforts for the downtown as well.
Okay. This next one is a little short. How frequently are our streets swept?
It's a good question. And what I wanted to say is that, first off, I'll start by saying that we have the most outstanding Department of Public Works. The men and women of our Public Works Department are incredible. And I've really enjoyed getting to know them and getting to work with them. We have a new head of the Highway Department who's done a fantastic job, as well as a new overall head of our Department of Public Works. And in our 3-year capital budget, which is also something that we've done under this administration, when we used to buy equipment, it was on a first come, first served basis. And now we have a 3-year capital plan with substantial investment in the Public Works Department. And as part of that capital plan, we actually purchased a new street sweeper. And that street sweeper is one of the smaller ones that you might see in Europe that can get into tight spaces. So we street sweep all the time. We also power wash almost every day of the week. And we've increased the street sweeping, we've increased the power washing, and we also bought a new beach rake. I was talking to the Highway Department last summer, and they said that our beach rake was on its last legs. So we actually bought a new one, and we've actually increased the frequency of beach raking as well. And we've now instituted a policy where we do more beaches, and we like to make sure the beaches are raked either on Thursday or Fridays. So when people come out for the weekend, the beaches are pristine. So we've increased the street sweeping, the beach raking, the power washing, and we want to keep on going.
Okay. What is being built next to the CVS?
That's a good question. I asked the building inspector that question. I wish I had a better answer. He just said they're doing an update there. I will find out because they are doing a substantial work there. But I did ask our building inspector about that. So I have to get back to you on that. But I know that the landlord there is just doing some work. I'll also say, Patrick, it's 6:53. I'm happy to stay a little longer. We still have quite a few people who are participating here. And we still have quite a few questions. So we don't have time for too many more questions, but I'm happy to hang a little longer too if need be.
Okay. Well, here's the last question. Sorry, no. My phone is going away. Is there any plans to add additional code enforcement staff?
Well, we actually have added some additional code enforcement staff. Part of the plan that I was hoping to implement was really to have a really strong team of code enforcement officers. In fact, we actually interviewed someone who might be able to join us as a senior code enforcement officer to help supervise all of our code enforcement officers. But we actually have a sergeant that's now assigned to oversee the part-time code enforcement officers. We put numerous people into training. We have an amazing person in our building department that also became a code enforcement officer. She's going to be working overtime to do days as a building department employee, as well as other days as a part-time code enforcement officer. So we actually have increased the number of code enforcement officers by creating new part-time positions. And what I will say is I actually just had a conversation about this, where we really want our code enforcement officers to make sure the focus is on quality of life. We want to make sure that we focus on things such as eliminating U-turns on Main Street. We have spoken about this summer submitting informational leaflets and pamphlets about our leaf blower law to landscapers. Our goal is for education. It's not to do citations, but we'll use and leverage our code enforcement officers to hand out that material to let people know what the rules of the village are. And we also want to make sure that the code enforcement officers can help with village and New York State property maintenance code as well. What we don't want our code enforcement officers doing is we really don't want them, nitpicking on businesses. We don't want them doing, small, insignificant things. We really want them focusing, and they've all done a great job, I'll say, but we want them focusing on the big picture items, the quality of life, the property maintenance code, and we want to use them to the best of their ability. And we also have the C-Click Fix app, so we'll be able to work with them on that as well. But one thing that we're rolling out again is a code enforcement unit or a code enforcement team. It's something that residents have told me, and it's now something that we have acted on to really increase the size of our code enforcement team as well.
Okay, and with that, I think we should wrap up for tonight.
Okay, very good. I'm looking at some of the Q&A. It looks like we've got through pretty much everything. So perfect timing here. I wanted to thank everybody for joining tonight. You are always welcome to reach out anytime with any questions or concerns. I love speaking to the village residents. I am happy to help in any way. And so I would encourage anybody who has any additional questions, particularly questions that you'd like to ask me privately or personally, to reach out as well. I'd be happy to answer those. And I appreciate all of your support over the years, and wanted to wish everybody a happy Sunday. So have a good night. Thank you very much for joining, and it is great to see everyone tonight. So thank you very much. Good night.
Good night.